Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really interesting conversation between two characters, Bob and Carol, hanging out at the village market. But here's the catch. We aren't just going to learn the idioms they're using. We're actually going to use a ridiculously powerful spatial memory technique to permanently lock these phrases right into your brain. So let's get started. We'll kick things off by just experiencing their dialogue exactly as it flows. Bob starts out by saying, "Thank you for making time for me today, Carol." Carol replies, "Don't mention it, Bob. What's up?" And Bob says, "My wife baked these cookies from scratch. Please take one." Notice the totally natural everyday phrasing here. Making time means you're intentionally carving out a spot in your busy schedule for someone. And baking from scratch simply means you're making something from the raw, basic ingredients. Definitely not from a box. So Carol takes a bite, and her reaction is just pure high praise. She goes, chewy, these are out of this world. To which Bob proudly responds, "My wife's a great cook." Out of this world is such a wonderfully colorful idiom, isn't it? It perfectly captures that feeling when something is just extraordinarily good. It's so amazing that it literally transcends our normal, everyday, earthly experiences. Now the playful banter really starts picking up. Carol completely agrees and says, "You can say that again. I don't want to make a pig of myself, but let me take a few more." Bob jokes right back, "Oink oink, just kidding." Saying "you can say that again" is a super native, casual way to express massive agreement. And making a pig of myself? Well, that's just a vivid, kind of self-deprecating way of admitting, hey, I am absolutely about to overindulge here. Okay, this is where the business negotiation officially begins. Carol sees the dollar signs and says, "I'd like to sell these at the village market. My customers will go nuts over these." Bob, not missing a beat, asks, "How much would you pay us for each cookie?" Carol is incredibly confident her customers will go nuts over them. And if someone goes nuts over something, they are just losing their minds with excitement and enthusiasm. The negotiation is getting a bit more serious now, so listen to how their imagery shifts. Carol answers, "I'm not sure. I need to roll up my sleeves and figure out the finances." Bob nudges her a bit. "Can you give me a ballpark figure now?" Rolling up your sleeves is this great physical metaphor for getting ready to do the hard, focused, dirty work. And asking for a ballpark figure is the perfect way to ask for a rough estimate. Like, you don't need it down to the exact penny just yet, just get me in the general area. Carol wraps up the chat with some solid, practical advice. She tells him, "I don't want to jump the gun, sit tight for now, and we'll talk things over this evening." So she's explicitly advising Bob not to jump the gun, meaning don't act way too fast, kind of like a runner taking off before the starting pistol even fires. Instead, she just wants him to sit tight. Basically, just wait patiently, hang out, and don't make any sudden moves until later. So, here is the million-dollar question we really need to answer. How on earth do you effortlessly memorize this dense list of native idioms without totally pulling your hair out? I mean, we just encountered 9 distinct, highly figurative phrases in one tiny conversation. If you just sit there staring at a vocabulary list using rote memorization, aggressively repeating them until your eyes glaze over, you are absolutely going to forget them by tomorrow. There just has to be a better, more efficient way to lock these into your long-term memory, right? Well, to solve this exact vocabulary challenge, we are going to tap into the famous memory palace concept, which was pioneered by the late, great memory expert Tony Buzan. A memory palace is essentially a mental hack. It leverages the fact that our human brains are unbelievably good at spatial memory. We are hardwired to remember where things are physically located in space. By taking the abstract information we want to learn, turning it into incredibly vivid mental imagery, and placing those images along a physical route we already know, we can recall complex information with almost zero effort. This whole technique is built on 3 really simple pillars. First up is linking. We need a sequence of locations that follow a completely logical order. Second is association. We have to connect the abstract idiom to a tangible, concrete visual. And third, and I cannot stress this enough, this is the most important one, is exaggeration. Your brain literally filters out the boring stuff. If you want to remember something, your mental image has to be totally weird, massive, loud, or completely absurd. Let's actually build one right now. We're going to physically guide your mind through a relatable, highly familiar space to perfectly anchor these new phrases. For Bob and Carol's conversation, our memory palace is going to be your local grocery store. We all know the basic layout of a supermarket, right? So we are going to take a mental walk from the entrance, weave through the aisles, and head all the way out to the parking lot, dropping our ridiculously exaggerated idiom images along the way. Okay, let's start our walk. As you walk right up to the store entrance, you need to remember, make time for. Imagine Bob standing at those automatic sliding doors, holding a giant physical calendar, and he is literally carving out a huge block of time with a roaring, spark-flying chainsaw. Next, walk into the produce section to remember from scratch. Picture this giant bowl of raw flour and cracking eggs frantically mixing itself in midair. Then turn down the bread aisle for out of this world. You look down and no way, there's a three-eyed alien hovering over a tray of cookies, glowing with this intense, bright purple cosmic light. As we venture deeper into the store, the exaggeration gets even wilder. You hit the meat counter to remember, you can say that again. Imagine a giant, wildly colorful parrot perched right on top of the raw steaks, just loudly squawking, you can say that again, every single time someone walks by. Next is the dairy aisle for make a pig of myself. Picture a massive pig dressed in a sharp, tailored business suit, sitting right inside the yogurt fridge, stuffing its face with so many cookies that it's physically swelling up. Finally, you hit the frozen food section for just kidding. Sitting right on top of a giant bag of ice is a massive Groucho Marx-style rubber nose with a mustache, giggling uncontrollably and shouting, just kidding. Actually, scratch that. Let's just pause on that pig visual for a second. Just picture it in your head. A massive pig in a business suit hanging out in the yogurt fridge, eating so many cookies it's physically exploding. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, right? But it perfectly proves Tony Buzan's rule: the weirder the image, the stronger the memory. If I just coldly gave you the dictionary definition of make a pig of myself, you'd forget it by lunchtime. But you are literally never going to forget walking past the dairy aisle and seeing a giant suited pig exploding with cookies. The absurdity is the secret sauce. All right, rounding the corner to the final aisles, we link our business idioms to some highly active scenes. You walk down the candy aisle to remember go nuts. Suddenly, thousands of literal peanuts and walnuts sprout little legs and start sprinting up and down the aisle, screaming and laughing. Next, past the bakery counter for roll up my sleeves. You look up and see a giant pair of floating, disembodied shirt sleeves moving completely on their own, rolling themselves up to the shoulder like they're prepping for a heavyweight boxing match. Then, you reach the checkout counter for ballpark figure. Standing right there on the conveyor belt is a fully dressed professional baseball player holding a giant scoreboard that's blinking a bright neon price tag. Finally, as we leave our memory palace, we anchor Carol's last pieces of advice. You approach the exit door to remember jump the gun. Hanging right in the doorway is a heavy metallic starter pistol. As you get close, it fires itself way too early, causing this chaotic, deafening explosion of sparks. You push through the doors, walk out to your car in the parking lot to remember sit tight. You jump in, but your car is physically stuck to the pavement with giant, gloopy puddles of superglue. You're revving the engine, the car is bouncing up and down aggressively, but it absolutely refuses to move, forcing you to literally sit tight. So what does this all mean for you? By dual-coding that raw, abstract text with these highly visual, wildly exaggerated scenes, you completely bypass boring rote memorization. You're finally speaking the brain's natural language, which is imagery and location. It's like a giant puzzle perfectly fitting together. This framework doesn't just make language learning faster, it makes it genuinely fun. Next time you need to recall how Carol reacted to those cookies, your brain just effortlessly walks over to the bread aisle, sees the alien, and hands you the phrase out of this world. Think about it. You've just mentally walked through your local grocery store and permanently locked 9 native English idioms into your memory, and you didn't have to look at a single flashcard to do it. Now that you've unlocked the boundless potential of your own imagination and spatial memory, I have to ask, what are you going to tackle next? What familiar building or route will you use? And, more importantly, what incredibly bizarre, exaggerated scenes is your next memory palace going to hold?